Hi, my name is Andreas Dunn, and this is the video submission for class D210. All right, so let's get started. So, I'd like to start this presentation with a question. And that question is, how do we as business professionals keep customers within our company or loyal to our company? In other words, how do we prevent people from leaving for a competitor? Because at the end of the day, the most important thing we can do as professionals work for any type of business, and this doesn't matter what type of business you work for. The principles are the same. How do we retain customers and grow our customer base so that we can continue to stay profitable and continue to stay afloat as a business? Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. It's the only reason we organize ourselves into businesses anyway, is so that we can all enjoy the benefits of collective action over for one specific goal. And this is a question that has a lot of value, and especially in the industry that I'm going to be focusing on in this presentation, which is the telecom industry. In the telecom industry, there is a lot of competition, and customers are not very loyal overall. There's high churn rate. And what churn rate means is customers who leave either your company for a competitor or just leave your company for another reason that you may not actually know. But given the fact that we can collect data on our existing customers, there is something that we can find out and we can know why they leave, or at least we can associate reasons together about why they might leave. And in this presentation, that's what I'm going to be going over. And so let's get started right here. This is the Tableau dashboard that I've created. And company one is data that is provided by the course. It's the customer churn data. And that data has data on customers, 10,000 different customers. And it has data, it has demographic data, it has data on how much usage they use, how much gigabytes per year gigabytes per year they use, how long they've been with the company, how much they get charged, and then there's other demographic information also like age, gender, and a lot of these things. And so company two is information that I found online. It's a complementary data source, and I found it through Kaggle. Kaggle is an online website that has a lot of different data sets. This is the data right here. This is the website, or this is the page that I got it from. And it's similar to the data that we already have. However, it's slightly different because it has a little bit of less variables. It doesn't have demographic data. And the reason that I chose this data set, even though it doesn't have demographic data like Company One data has, is because when you're combining different data sources, sometimes there's trade-offs that you have to make. And and the reason that I chose this data was because it still had enough. It was still relevant. It was in the same industry. This is churn data from the telecom industry, and it has enough similarities that make it complementary. And these similarities I'll show you right now. So these are the three main similarities that I use, which is average gigabytes per year, tenure in months, and then the average monthly charge. And I had to do a little bit of, I had to change this data a little bit using Python. Go to that now. So you can, this is the data that I had to transform. Just doing a little bit of transformation with the data to make sure that it was in the right format. In the right format here is, so you can see from the website, account weeks. I had to make that into months. Data usage was monthly. I had to make that into years. So just a few transformations. Also, I had to combine the data a little bit to make it work easier with Tableau. So a little bit of data wrangling and cleaning there, but overall the data had no null values and it was very good. And so going on to the dashboard, as you can see here, this is data one, or company one. So this is the data provided by the course. And this is the information that I thought was most pertinent in answering our question, which is how do we retain customers? That's the most important thing at the end of the day, right? Is retaining customers. And as you can see visually just from the table, there's some very obvious correlations here. The most interesting that I found myself was this tenure column. As you can see with the company one data, um, those who stayed with the company had a lot longer tenure. And another interesting thing was they actually were getting charged less. And so it's these kind of data points that we can look at and kind of make some assumptions and correlations about our customer base. And that can be backed up with other data sources. And as you can see here, this is my other data source that I got from Kaggle. And I have changed all the variables so that they're, exactly the same. This data source has less observations. This one has 10,000. This one has around 3,300. Actually, I think it's 3,333 exactly. And so we can look at the correlations between these two and draw some assumptions about our customers. So what are the assumptions of our customers in this industry? Well, as we can see, a lower monthly charge is associated with them staying. And that should be pretty intuitive for anyone who's worked in business for any amount of time. If you are charging less for your service, you're going to have more people who are interested in comparison to other companies, and they're more likely to stay longer. But I think looking at this data, the most important thing to take away is this usage data point here, which is average of gigabytes per year used between those who left and those who stayed with the company. And as you can see, it's reflected in company 2 and company 1, and it's a strong correlation here. And so what does this say about our customers? It says that those who use more services or perhaps use more data will have a higher tenure with the company, and they will be more likely to stay with that company over a long period of time. And that is shown by the data here. Just looking at the averages of gigabyte per year per both data sources, it shows us that. And I think it's important to know that it may not be just one service that you're providing as a company, it may be multiple services. So you might be supplying a customer with multiple devices, and maybe their gigabyte usage will go up because of that. And or you're just providing them with a good quality of service, and they want to stay. And so using the company 1 data and 2 data, we can see that. So what does company 1 data also show us? So now, like I said earlier, in answering this question, we want to have multiple different sources of data. Sometimes those data are complementary, but they don't always have the exact same amount of information. So when it comes to the dashboard here, it's interactive with company 1 because company 1 has information on demographics, which is reflected here by the states. So if you click on a state, you can see how the data changes here and it changes here because there's also a churn data point that is represented from company 1 that is not from company 2. And as you can see, as you click around the dashboard to these different filters, this is one filter, this is another one. So if I click out, you can see this is represented by state. The blue is those who stayed, and the green is those who left the company. And you can also see how this is dispersed throughout the United States, this continental United States. A lot of customers, obviously, in California. Well, there's a lot of people in California and in Texas as well. And this is, you can see if you click on here that our information will change. And you can also filter just using the churn by gender filter over here. So you can just do female, and you can see how our numbers will update as we click. They update here and they update here. And so one thing I wanted to point out in this presentation was just because company 1 has data on demographics and company 2 doesn't, it doesn't mean that we cannot complement our data with other sources to make a stronger case for our analysis and our conclusions. And so complementary data sources do not always have to have the same amount of information. As long as the information is more, we can get deeper insights into the way that into the reasons why customers may stay with a company or not. And so company 1, I think the most interesting data point to conclude with is this average gigabyte per year. And I think the reason why customers will stay with a company, specifically in this industry, the telecom industry, is because if you provide them with good service is the most important thing. Provide them with one product that's good, and then that's how you get them to that's how you get their attention to begin with. But in order to keep them loyal, the most important thing is to provide more services. It's not to necessarily increase the quality of the one thing that you're providing, because let's be frank, if you're doing a good job with that one thing, you don't need to really improve on it. Of course, you can improve on things over time, but the focus should be on diversification. And diversification is what's going to lead to clients sticking around longer because you're giving them more reasons to stick with you. And that, I think, is reflected by this gigabyte per year column, where it shows us if you provide more services, they're going to be using more data, which is reflected by gigabytes per year, and they're going to stay more loyal. And as you can see here, it's reflected by both company one data and by company two data. There's a little data point here with the average tenure being a different difference here between 8 or 9. Now, it is an average, so it may change on a customer basis, and this has many less observations. So maybe as observations grow, this average tenure per month column would reflect the difference that we see with company one. But as you can see with the other data points, the correlation's there: gigabytes per year, average monthly charge, and total amount of customers. And so going back to this question that we asked at the beginning of the presentation, how do we keep people interested in our business? How do we keep them loyal to us? So at the end of the day, we can keep running our company and we can all go home to our families with nice paychecks and we can live a good life. At the end of the day, that's what business is here for. It's to provide for people who work for the business and for the people who are customers to the business. And I think if you're going to take anything away from this presentation, it is that you provide good service at the beginning, and to keep people, you have to provide more services. And yeah, that concludes my presentation. So thank you for listening.